progress in food manufacturing and recent discoveries in nutritional science have resulted in increasingly high food quality standards and enormous food variety. The basic definition, and that's why it's normal to increase the methods of processing, food preservation, the generation of food, and of course to improvement the colors, the taste, the texture, and everything that is included under the food processing. The basic definition of food processing is a variety of operations by which raw stuff are made suitable for consumption, cooking, or storage. Food processing in reality is making food edible. This is the process of transformation of raw ingredients by physical chemical means into food. And it spans the whole food chain from harvesting of the farm to different forms of culinary preparation at home and out-home nutrition. Differences between food processing and food preservation. Food processing and preservation are two techniques that are used to maintain the quality and freshness of food. Food processing is performed to turn food into something that is more palatable and convenient to eat. Food processing mostly involves packaging preservation. It means that this is the technologies that are widely used today. And in general, we are recommended from one side, the food producer, they increase the production of different kinds of processed foods because they're more attractive and they're more expensive. But from the other side, nutritionists recommend to eat less processed food and to select raw vegetable, raw fruit, and whole grain products. So everything that is less processed. And this is, of course, this is not a controversy. It's a culture of selecting the right food in the right amount. Food preservation is a part of the entire procedure of processing foods. Food preservation is concerned with the control and elimination of the agent of food spoilage. And there are various methods for food preservation, which include the addition of chemicals, hydration, and heat processing. And you see, this is everything is food processing, from farm to the fork to our table, and including packaging and labeling. It allows changes to the quality of foods to be made in the predictable and controlled way, in order to ensure from one side to adapt our preferences, to our taste preferences, but from the other side, and this is the most important test, is to ensure food safety. And this is food processing science needs a more regarding right choice and seasonality. In large-scale food manufacture, processing involves applying scientific and technological principles to preserve food by slowing down or stopping the natural process of decay. Processing and preparation activities cover three main fields: preservation of food by modern methods such as refrigeration, canning, and irradiation. Traditional methods for preservation, such as drying, salting, smoking, and fermentation. Also developing protein-rich foods. This is the so-called modification of food, formulation of food. Now there's an EU initiative about food formulation, and it means the producer to make food with less sugar, less salt, less sodium, and less fat. This project of formulation. And of course, food additives in order to increase the stability, the color, and the taste of foods. Food preservation involves preventing the growth of bacteria and fungi. And some methods work by introducing bacteria and fungi. This is fermentation example, to the food chain, so habits slowing the oxidation of fats and cause rancidity. Food preservation includes processes that inhibit visual deterioration, such as enzymatic browning reaction in apples after they are cut during preparation. There's some enzymatic treatment in order because you know that they brown. Aim of food processing is destroying the microorganism, modifying, improving the taste and aromatic properties of food, coagulation of proteins, caramelization of starch, combustion of fat, and all this improves digestibility and absorption of nutrients and prolong storage time and shelf life. And because of the globalization, it's very important to prolong storage time and shelf life, because when there is a free movement of foods from one part of Europe to the other, it's important to process, to manipulate foods in order to prolong storage time and shelf life. Main benefits: palatability and sensory improvement, preserve and improve nutritional quality in some kinds, improve safety, preservation, convenience, and choice, and using healthy qualities. And so this is in general. And food safety, this is the technique that ensures safety of foods by reducing the numbers of harmful bacteria. And the methods through drying, pickling, and smoking, it reduces the water activity. And we say that products with less than 15% water content, they have longer shelf life. So water activity, water available for bacterial growth, and pH of foods and restrict the growth of pathogenic and microorganisms and retard enzyme reactions. Also, canning, pasteurization, and ultra high temperature destroy bacteria through heat treatment. So there are different, from one side there is high temperature, from other side reducing water content. And the benefits, for example, cooking destroys is destruction of anti-nutritional factors, because you know that in some raw foods there are enzymes that inhibit, for example, inhibitors, protease inhibitors, such as trypsin inhibitors, beans and potatoes. That's why you should thoroughly treat it before eating, because these protease inhibitors that spoil the taste and the bioavailability of the food. Trypsin inhibitors are small globular proteins which inhibit the action of the human digestive enzyme trypsin, hemopsin, required to break down that protein. So, proteins are not utilized. When present in food, they can reduce the nutritional value of the food, and in high doses, they have been shown to be toxic in animal studies and in humans. And for example, prolonged boiling also destroys the harmful activities present in legumes, such as kidney beans. And red blood cells come together, and if not degraded prior to consumption, cause severe gastroenteritis, nausea, and vomiting. So there are people who are especially sensitive to these red kidney beans, and they can produce hypersensitivity to foods. Benefits: removal toxins, preservation, easier marketing and distribution, increase early availability of many foods. This is important. Enables transportation of delicate perishable foods across long distance, contribute to food safety by deactivating spoilage and pathogenic microorganisms. For example, it can help to preserve nutrients lost during storage, because when you leave, for example, apples for a long time, they lose their vitamin C content. For example, shock freezing vegetables, shock shortly after harvesting showed slow loss of sensitive nutrients. So these deep freezed vegetables are really very good for, they're alternative for fresh vegetables, especially raw are inedible, and the simple process of heating renders them edible by destroying or inactivating specific anti-nutritional factors they contain. And boiling a vegetable does lead to loss of vitamin C, and vitamin C can be found in water. It can also release certain beneficial bioactive substances such as beta-carotenes. So boiling is, if you are boiling vegetables, it's recommended the water to be used, not to be thrown out, but to be used for soup or for purees or for eating purposes. Goes water soluble inside water. This food processing ensures safety, and 60.8% of consumers, they are concerned about food safety. This is the most important, not about the healthiness of the diet, but about food safety. And the concerns are for fish, concern for fish, meat, and this is puddings, and this is raw vegetables and fruits, and this is milk, and I don't know what is this anyway. But the most important is that 37.6% says that they experience foodborne disease and never use the same product from the same group. And this is the food safety concern. Again, twice as many people are concerned with food product safety and quality. This is the dynamic in the 5 years period. And 40% of consumers have lost enjoyment of food due to concerns about its safety and quality. Most feared ingredients are bacterial and pesticides for yourself, or for the person for the individual evaluation, because they are concerned of contamination and food poisoning, and for your children is bacterial and pesticides, high arsenic levels and high mercury level, and food poisoning. Are more likely to shop at farmers market than mass merchandiser to avoid this is questionable ingredient, but also to avoid this gen modifiable foods. But this is okay. It's not everything the right choice if you are going from supermarket, because there is another food safety concern if you are shopping at the local farmers market. Consumers demand a food supply that is nutritious, safe, convenient, varied. Food processing methods, food editing, and advanced technology help to make this possible. And food important role in preserving the freshness, safety, and taste. So, here are examples. Antioxidants, for example, prevent fats and oils from becoming rancid. Emulsifiers stop peanut butter from separating into solid and liquid. Keep bread free of molds for longer and of gel, so you can bread on bread. So, and that's why it's important that people are reading the label on the packaging. But this is unavoidable. Without the additive, it's not possible to ensure the quality of this processed food or presented through the market. Food processing involves activities such as mincing and macerating, liquefaction, emulsification, and cooking, such as boiling, broiling, frying, grilling. pickling, pasteurization, and many other kinds of preservation, and the canning or other packaging. So this is a table you will have time to look at it in order to compare the traditional, how the chronological development of food processing techniques. So how the traditional processing developed. In both the home procedure processing, but industrial processing. For example, canning, it's canning. At the time we are doing this with high salt or high sugar in jam and pickles. And the more modern process, circa, previous century, extrusion cooking, and now this is freeze drying. Freeze drying first is freezing and drying, dehydration, and fermentation. Fermentation is developed in freezing cheese, and then radiation, because fermentation it's very important to select the right bacteria for developing the right beneficial bacteria for the right food and to keep the duration. So irradiation is much more easy to control. Freezing is plays the pasteurization, and now it's magnetic oven drying, sterilization, and now it's microwave processing. Pickling, ultra high temperature, and moderate atmospheric packaging. So, in order to avoid pickling with salt and so on, you can go and treat it. Food processing, it's a two-stage process. This is a two-stage process, primary processing such as dicing and slicing, freezing or drying, when leading to secondary products are also included. And the second is thermal processing, oiling, baking, frying, grilling, steaming, and so on. So this is important to keep in order to ensure safety food. Food preservation, microorganisms are destroyed, enzymes are disrupted, conditions are created in which microorganisms cannot grow, and changing organoleptic and biological properties of food are ensured. And there are different methods, various methods for food preservation, which include addition of chemicals. This is E indexes, for example, in European regulation, also dehydration and heat processing, and physically slow and high temperature and drying. System drying, for example, that is in our village, still a dish for the consumption of fruits. Chemicals also changes in osmotic pressure through addition of salt, sugars, also pH through addition of lactic acids, acetic acid, benzoic acid. So increase the pH in order to ensure unfavorable situation environment for bacterial. Salicylic acid is not anymore. Also antibiotics, this is also avoided. Antiseptics, antioxidants, for example, vitamin C, you read the letters, you will see the vitamin C very often included as preservative. Chemical methods, smoking, hot smoking, fresh and frozen foods, and cold smoking, salted products. And biological methods, fermentation. So you have to remember this slide because in the test, it was such a question, what are the methods for preservation methods, and you have to know them with examples. And preservation at low temperature, the cooling, for example, around 0 degree. Preservation at low temperature, this is our refrigerator between 0 and 4 degree. Suppress the development of non-sporulated microorganisms. A slow autolysis and oxidation process, and shelf life in the refrigerator not longer than 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the food. So it depends on the water content and the quality of food. But of course, fish you cannot store for 2 to 3 weeks. Preservation by freezing. This is the temperature minus 18 degrees. In this situation, microflora does not develop, and oxidation processes are minimized or limited. Slow oxidation of fat, especially fat, are critical for long-term, a long time preservation of minus 18 degrees. Because, for example, shelf life of 6 to 12 months, depending on the fat content of products. Low fat meats, long shelf life. For example, pork with beef or with poultry. So pork has shorter shelf life in minus 18 compared to poultry. Of course, it's not recommended to leave meat for a long time in freezer. Deep freezing. Preservation with high temperature. Food processing by pasteurization. Pasteurization is below 100 degrees. Your menu, there is it shows what kind of pasteurization exists, but it's important to remember that, for example, pasteurized milk, because it's the food processing, the temperature is lower. It's with higher quality compared bioavailability compared to boiling, for example, because this pasteurized milk contains some vitamins and minerals. They're preserved because of lower temperature. Pasteurization is around 70 degrees. And pathogenic microorganism does not develop. Nutritional and taste properties of the product are reserved. A shelf life of several days to several. But pasteurization, for example, cannot kill the spore. This micro, for example, botulism, it happens. And but it destroys all bacteria and also viruses. So that's why it's recommended to drink pasteurized milk. Food processing with high temperature, more than 100 degrees. In this situation, pathogens, including spores, are destroyed. In the pasteurization, spores are not destroyed. And some structural changes in the product appear, changes in taste, chemical composition, destruction of enzyme and vitamins, and shelf life can be between 18 and 24 months. Physical methods: preservation with high temperature, preservation by drying, the water the product is used for fitting. This situation, when the low water content is ensured, pathogen does not develop but remains. Drying under natural condition, there are some approaches by hot air or contact with hot surface. For example, tumble drink. Tumble drink is used for when there is produced dry form milk for infants. Of course, also vacuum drying. And freeze drying, lyophilization. Freeze drying, lyophilization, this is freezing. The first step is freezing, and then evaporation, subsequent evaporation of ice. And this is a very advantage method of processing lyophilization. Also, changes in osmotic pressure. This is another way to protect, to preserve food. Preservation by adding salt in concentration over 12 degrees, and pathogens and microbes do not develop, but they still are able to develop later. And negative effect. High temperature, this is boiling. This is our fruits, gelees and jams and everything. That and marmalade, changing in pH in the product, less than 4 to 1.222, acetic acids and salting. This is the typical pickling for our region, and retains the development of most pathogens. So in the pickles we are preparing for winter. Also chemical preservation methods. Preservation with antiseptics and antibiotics, sulfur dioxide, benzoic and sorbic acids. All these preservatives are permitted, are adopted by the European Food and Safety Agency and are labeled, are on the label of the food. Pre-cooked fruits, they are used for pre-cooked fruits, dried fruits and vegetables, fruit juices and pickles, preservation with salicylic acids in foods, wine, beer and cider. It's, you know, some people, they become stomach ache, stomach pain after drinking or eating some foods, and one of the reasons could be if the person is very sensitive to salicylic acids, could be the salicylic acids as a preservative. And also antioxidants, some vitamins, ascorbic palmitate. And this is physical chemical preservation method, are fumigation, bactericidal activity, a combination of drying, salting, heating, and antiseptic smoke. And also biological preservation method. You should say, because I'm asking during the exam, if we have an exam in this format, give me an example for fermentation. This is, and students are wondering what is this fermentation. This is a good example is yogurt. Fermentation is based on the antagonism of microorganisms changing in the pH of medium and suppress the development of pathogenic microflora. And lactose is decomposed to lactic acid, change the pH. So this is the approach of sauerkraut and yogurt and other typical for our region foods. Different processing methods, for example, heating. The temperature of food is raised to a level which inhibits the growth of bacteria, inactivate enzyme. Traditional wet cooking methods include blanching, boiling, steaming, and pressure cooking. And this wet cooking, they're traditional, but some of the bioactive substances are lost. Dry cooking methods include baking, frying, and roasting, but some of them are not recommended for dietary nutrition, dietetic. In newer technologies, heat is applied by electromagnetic radiation, such as microwave. And ultra-high temperature technologies are used widely across the food industry. This is the heating the food to more than over 135 degrees for at least 1 second, followed by a rapid cooling in order to destroy all microorganisms. So it's very important after the heating, after the reaching the core temperature, to cool very, very quick the food in order to ensure to stop the developing of microorganism, pathogenic microorganism. And pasteurization, the food is heated to at least 72 degrees for at least 15 seconds to kill most foodborne pathogenic, then cooled rapidly to 5 grams, but not the spores we already mentioned. High temperature, for example, salmonella, most are sensitive to high temperature, but some toxins are not because there are specific requirements in order to destroy or to remove the toxins. If in foods are some, for example, botulism toxin, they are destroyed at high temperature. Most of them are heat resistant, temperature resistant. Salmonella is destroyed at 75 degrees for 5 minutes, at 100 degrees instantly, and at acidic environment less than 7. Staphylococcus more than 80 for 10 minutes. And of course, sugar more than 60% and sodium chloride more than 12%. This is Chilling and cooling, chilling or cooling, the temperature of the food is reduced to slow deterioration of the food either through bacterial growth, retardation, or inactivation of enzyme with deterioration. Though traditional chilling don't include refrigeration where temperature around 4 degrees and deep freezing where the temperature are reduced below 18. And okay, severe temperature changes over the prolonged time period can lead to nutrient loss, breakdown of integral food structure, and reduction of nutritional value. That's why it's not recommended to store for a long time. If there is, of course, despite that there is a safety method to store at minus 18 degree in the freezer, it's not recommended this to be for a long time because foods lose their nutritional values. And this is salt. I told you. I mean, we can go to the next one. And salting, there is other food processing method in which salt played a role as a brining and pickling. And pickling, salting or brining in combination with fermentation or adding of vinegar, and is mainly used for preservation of vegetables, sauerkraut, cucumbers, peppers, onion, olives, and fish, of course. And brining of food, for example, our white cheese is put in solution, high sodium solution. Water is saturated with sodium. And method which has been a common way to preserve meat, fish, and vegetables. But now it's there. Drying, I told you, it's freeze drying, spray drying, milk powder, sun drying to make apricots, or tunnel drying for vegetables. But this tunnel drying is for industrially produced foods. Fermentation. You can go through these slides and read it. What is fermentation? And remember, there are specific yeasts and bacteria to give a food desired flavor and texture. And it's used in bread, in cheese, in yeast fermentation is used in process such as baking of bread and production of alcoholic beverages. Soy sauce is also in aerobic condition. The yeast converts sugars and another carbohydrates to carbon dioxide and water. Okay, and this is a fermentation of alcoholic beverages also. It's a natural, and fermentation is of great importance for the taste of beer, wine, as the yeast, besides ethanol and carbon dioxide, produce a number of other compounds that gives these beverages their specific aromatic characteristics. This is fermentation of alcoholic beverages also. Some kind of food processing. This is another type of fermentation is driven by lactic acid production, bacterial naturally occurring in the food or added in the production process. The bacteria use lactose, milk sugar, or other carbohydrates as substrates for production of lactic acid. And as the lactic acid content increases, the pH decreases, and this may impact the characteristic of the food, as certain proteins are sensitive to acidity. For example, acidic environment coagulates casein in milk, which makes the milk thicken and give yogurt and other sour dairy products their particular consistency. Okay, this is advantage of fermentation, enhance the durability and the safety of food. Fermentation also may enhance nutritional value of food. Microorganisms do produce amino acids, fatty acids, and certain vitamins, which are absorbed and made use easily. The microbial activity may also reduce the content of anti-nutrient substances present in certain foods, like pulses, cereals, vegetables, which interfere with the absorption of nutrients. Reducing the content of such compounds enhance absorption of nutrients from the food and thereby increase the nutritional value. So fermentation increase the quality. Also, not only is a is used a preservative, but also increase the quality and the bioavailability of the specific products. And food additives, this is the so-called different e-additives adopted by EU Commission. Food additives are substances that are added to foods to serve specific technical purposes, depending on the function they perform when added to foods: preservation, antioxidants, stabilizer, anti-caking agents, and packaging gases. Only substances that are not normally consumed as food in itself and that are not normally used as a characteristic ingredients of food qualify as additives. So this is something different that should be labeled. Additives may be natural identical, and artificial. All food additives in processed foods must be approved by the national regulatory body, changed with food safety in each country. Yes, but now it's there is a general regulation, EU regulation for food additives, and it's important to keep the strict limits. Strict limits are placed on the amount and types of additives in food, and any additive must be included in the ingredients listing on the food packages. In Europe, approved additives are given in the prefix E for Europe. The advantages of new technologies: many traditional methods of preservation cause inevitable losses in nutrient levels and can be adversely affect the nature and quality of the products. And the newer technologies, they give us more opportunities for minimal processes, and they at the same time aim to produce safe foods that are of higher nutritional quality with better organoleptic and keeping qualities. Okay, and this is microwaving. This is interesting because usually it's used only for heating or for reheating, but microwaves are treated efficiently in water, but not by plastic and glass, and are reflected by metals. That's why you can use metal cups. But this is the microwave methodology is heating by radiation inside the food, opposite to the more traditional convection and convection. Microwave is a fast method, you know, this very convenient. And the next one is irradiation. Processed by ionizing radiation is particular kind of energy transfer, with the portion of energy transfer per treatment being higher enough to cause ionization. It is used to control and disrupt biological process in order to extend the shelf life. Beneficial biological effects of irradiation include sprouting inhibition, ripening delay, and insect disinfection. So it's the major advantage of irradiation is that it passes through the food, kills microorganisms, but because it does not hit the food, it has a marginal effect on the nutritional composition. Remember this, irradiation, so compared to microwave or to other traditional methods, irradiation is superior in order to superior method for preservation of nutritional compounds. Ultra high pressure technology subject foods to produce this is very high pressure, number of K attributes, including microorganism inactivation, modification of biopolymers, such as gel formation, and quality retention, such as color, flavor, and nutrient. And it offers the possibility of retaining vitamins, pigments, and flavors compounds. So remember this, that these new technologies and new processing methods, the advantages from one side, they kill the pathogenic microorganism. From one side, from the other side, they preserve the nutritional value of foods, nutritional quality. Food processing can lead to improvement or damage to the nutritional value of food. Simple home food preparation lead to inevitable damage to the cells of plant foods, heating to the leaching of essential vitamins and minerals. And food manufacturers have access to commercial scales fast processing methods, which cause minimal nutrient loss. This is the key message. And about vitamin and minerals, of course, there one method I deleted from the presentation is the ohmic heating or ultra high pressure treatment. And this is very advanced technology that can help to retain vitamins because they subject the food to lower temperature. This is traditional, and this is interesting to know that, for example, mineral salts and water-soluble vitamins, through boiling in water and pressure cooking, the content of calcium, iron, zinc, and kidney bean decreased by 50%, copper and manganese by 60%, magnesium, phosphorus, and the potassium by 65%. So it means that everything is lost in water. It's transferred from the food into the water. But there are also this thermal or processing procedure. They have a positive effect, for example, on the availability of minerals from food. For example, phytates in whole grain cereals inhibit iron and zinc absorption. But during fermentation, enzymes are released which degrade the phytates and increase the iron and zinc availability in dough. And carbohydrates, mono and oligosaccharides, little degradation occurs at temperature right up to those used in ultra-high temperature treatment processing, but there are some reactions that may affect nutritional quality. For example, some sugars could change their molecular structure during heating, which may affect digestibility. This could be advantage. Okay. And about fat, they're reasonable, stable, but unsaturated fatty acids are prone to oxidation and rancidity during storage. And the application of modified atmospheric packaging, antioxidant, and aseptic packaging can lead to significantly increased storage time. It means that the storage should be without oxygen. And about the protein, it's some new food processing methods like high pressure electric field application of irradiation could have an impact on food allergen. This is increase the protein. In general, it increased the protein digestibility. But destruction of anti-nutritional proteins such as avidin in raw eggs is advantageous during processing because it enabled the absorption of otherwise bound nutrients. It means that raw egg is not absorbed as a boiled egg. Okay, and this is, I think, that you'll discuss with with my colleague about the requirement for storage. For example, roasted and cooked meats up to 30 hours under refrigerator, fried fish and meatballs not more than 12 hours from the same working day. Ready meat stews, moussaka, casseroles by the end of the day in the refrigerator. This is very important because salmonella and staphylococcus appear from both infections very often from moussaka and stews. Before consuming, repeating heat treatment, then realizing within 1 hour. So not reheated 100 times. Risky foods are meat and food containing meat or dairy products, prepared fruits and vegetables, brought because of risk of secondary contamination, for example, cooked rice and pasta, and cooked or processed food containing eggs. And maybe next time we'll discuss this when we're talking about microbiology. And they can only be held for a certain amount of time at room temperature before they become unsafe to eat. Room temperature is between 5 and 60 degrees. Okay, risky food held at room temperature for up to 2 hours. Okay. Risky food held at room temperature for more than 2 hours, but less than 4 hours are okay to use, but cannot be refrigerated for later use. So 2 hours and not more after preparing food. And you can store in the refrigerator for the next day. But if you store at room temperature for more than between 2 and 4 hours, it's not possible to be, there is a risk to be consumed. No. And risky food risky food held at room temperature for longer than 4 hours must be thrown away. They are unsafe to eat, includes preparation and serving time. And cold foods below -5 degrees and frozen below -15, they should be transported with a special transport. Insulated container. Hot food should be eaten as soon as possible after cooking. And when the food is cool, it can be transferred to the freezer when reheated food, heat the food until steaming hot. And I think this is, we are on time. Thanks God. And this is the refrigerator, maybe some of you, how we should organize our refrigerator according to the temperature ensured in the refrigerator and according to the storage time. And if you look at this, you will see that everything is in a closed containers and it is organized on the proper place according to the quality of food. Here there is, in this refrigerator, there is no raw pasta or rice or flour, you see that. So here are eggs, here is milk. So this is, and okay, you can, this is the last one. And you can find in the internet, because they're in a very small, this picture, how should they organized and what is improperly organized. Maybe you'll discuss this during your exercises this week, I hope. I don't know. Okay, now, thank you very much for participating. I'll put, and for your patience, but this is the situation when we have to take everything for one semester, even less than one semester. I'll put these two presentations in